Congratulations in advance. And being owned by one's own employees is quite interesting. Then we are going to hear Georg Kraft Kinz, whose company, Raiffeisen, part of the Raiffeisen Bank system, is actually owned by its customers, because this is a cooperative type of organization. Then we are going to turn to Klemens Kalverkamp, whose company, Grimme Landmaschinenfabrik, the manufacturer for agriculture machines, is actually a family company with global reach. And then, having understood these three forms of ownership, we are going to turn to two very different situations. One where we have a major partnership, with partners being more or less equal among themselves. And this will be what Patrick de Cambourg will be explaining to us. He is the chairman of a very large partnership, Mazars, in consulting and auditing. And then finally, we are going to hear about something which was mentioned this morning, namely state capitalism. And Alexander Triebnigg, who is, among other things, the president of Novartis in Brazil, will talk to us about this phenomenon and what it means for other companies. By the way, may I ask my fellow panelists not to try to win the race for talking speed, because I think we had serious competition this morning. And my observation is that the quality and quantity of information communicated is actually inversely proportional to the speed of delivery. Having said that, may I introduce Kathy to talk to us about her company, which is employee-owned, Graybar. Kathy?
Thank you.
Bravo.
He's heard me speak before. That's why he says I need to slow it down. So if I start speaking too quickly, somebody raise their hand and wave it to me if you would. Well, thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the organization that I represent, a Graybar Electric company. We are a Fortune 500 company that is 100% owned by current or retired employees. Our motto is that we're powered by people. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the employee ownership model can actually fuel long-term success and sustainability of a corporation. Our heritage, our roots trace back to 1869. We were part of Western Electric. So our company has been around a long time. In 1929, the employees bought the company from Western Electric for $9 million. At the time, we went into the Great Recession, and the company lost 2/3 of its revenue at the time, but it continued to pay dividends to its shareholders and continued to offer the level of benefits to the employees that it had when it first became Graybar. We believe that profit and people is what equals success. And we make profit for the benefit of our employees, completely for our employees. The advantages to our company being employee-owned is that we have long-term, dedicated employees. And that dedication and long-term employee structure actually provides a significant stability and service to our customers. Several of our customers have been clients of ours for 50, 75, and 100 years. In addition, we do business with over 100,000 suppliers, and many of those supplier relationships date back more than 100 years. In the United States, based off of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average tenure for a business or a person in a job in 2010 was only 4.4 years. Our average tenure of our employees is over 12 years. Our turnover rate is only 8.5% in an industry that boasts turnover rates exceeding 25%. So once our employees find a home with us, they find that it's very beneficial and it is really good from a long-term development perspective. Many of us have been with the company from entry-level jobs I started when I was 19 years old as a customer service representative. And while working, the company went ahead and afforded me 3 degrees they paid for, as well as allowed me to have developmental opportunities to where I've been able to assume this current role. Being employee-owned also allows us to invest strategically when necessary without a lot of significant outside influence. That's very important to us because many times we're really looking at the long-term sustainability of the corporation. Our 4 core values include integrity, of which we're known to have a very high and very strong reputation of having high levels of integrity, customer focus, we take a long-term view of our investments, and in addition to that, underlying it all is our employee ownership structure. Our employees have made a consistent cash dividend since we became employee-owned. Since 1941, we paid a minimum of a dividend of 10% on their investment, and since the 40s, our stock price has not changed. It is a fixed price of $20 a share. But we've also had significant stock dividends given to our employees at the same time. In the last 5 years alone, if you look at what we've paid our shareholders, they have experienced on average a 24% return on their investment in the company. That's pretty strong investments back to our shareholders. Whether our employees own stock or not, there's a lot of advantages to be employee-owned. We provide a significant amount of benefits to our employees, including a full-blown pension plan, which you don't hear about very much anymore in the United States. We offer a profit-sharing plan, full medical, a very, very Cadillac-type medical plan, as well as all the paid holidays and vacations. Again, we believe that it is a significant competitive advantage to have happy employees, because happy employees mean we're going to have satisfied and happy customers. The advantages that we offer also to our customers and manufacturers is the fact that we're very stable. We intend to be around another 100 years from now, and so our decisions are all predicated on longevity, not necessarily revenue size, although that's important. As I said, we're a Fortune 500 company. We do approximately $5.5 billion a year. But even more important than that is to have a company that's going to be around to provide the level of value to future generations. We have a significant strength. We have a very strong balance sheet because we do measure our financial performance based as if we were a publicly traded company. And just to make sure I go on record, we are a public company. We do file with the SEC because of the number of shareholders, but we are privately traded. So we have a foot in both worlds, the public world, or as we've heard it here, referenced capitalism 1.0, as well as the employee ownership world. And finally, all of these results and the way we're structured really allow us to make strategic decisions without a lot of undue outside pressure. We don't have that quarterly pressure to make short-term decisions to make sure that our investors get their share prices up. What we really are looking at is making strategic decisions to make the company and the foundation stronger. We also make decisions that are based off the best interests of our employees, their families, as well as the communities in which they live. We have a major emphasis on sustainability, and we do expect our employees to give back to the communities in which we serve. So overall, we like our model. It served us well for 83 years of employee ownership, and my goal as the CEO is to make sure that we have at least another 83 to 100 years. Thank you for hearing a little bit about the company, and I look forward to hearing questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Are there some immediate recommendations you want to give the audience on how they could evolve some of their practices, taking a leaf from your book?
Sure. I think you can do this one?
Yeah, that's good.
I think I'll stand up for this one. I actually made a couple notes because I want to make sure I give you some good suggestions. The key is to make sure that you communicate regularly and with transparency. One of the things that we find that's very difficult is to make sure that we reach all the employees at all levels so they understand what is going on in the company that they own, as well as what they can do to provide value to their fellow employees, as well as to the organization at large. In addition to that, I'd look at making sure that you stay externally focused. Too often you'll find with an employee-owned company that you tend to look internally a lot. And what happens is as the competition continues to change and the economic environment continues to be challenged, you need to continually look at your organization and look at your competitive model to make sure that you stay viable, because it is important to stay relevant as the conditions change. And finally, I think it's important when you have a unique business model, such as all the folks here up on the panel, I think it's important that you tie that into your PR and marketing to make sure that you use that as your competitive differentiator as you brand your company going forward. That's what I think.
As your employees own your company, do you feel your authority threatened?
No, actually, I feel somewhat excited about it, because what happens when you're an employee-owned company is that they have a vested interest in making sure that you do well. And our employees are pretty vocal. So, you know, people talk about external shareholders being vocal. Sometimes when you look at it, an employee-owned company operates much more like a community or a family. And any of you who have worked in a family business know how vocal your family members can be. Well, that's the same environment that we have, and we continue to nurture it because the best ideas come from our frontline employees, not from the C-suite.
Very good. Thank you very much. We are going to take a couple of questions from the audience regarding this employee ownership model. Who has one? Yes, please. There is one here in front. The front people are advantaged, by the way, because their hands look bigger.
Thank you. Christian Prosler from Ambassador. Your model seems to be like a miracle. It's heaven on earth. What are your weaknesses?
Well, there's several weaknesses, all right. Just like if anything, there's strengths and weaknesses. One of the challenges that you have with our model is that when you want to have fast growth, and because we don't have public debt, sometimes the capital may be limited. Now, we do have pretty substantial access to overnight lines and capital if we need it, but when it looks at the outside world and you're competing against capitalist 1.0 type companies, it's all about the top line number. And so how do you make sure that you balance the stability and the long-term decisions with making sure that you stay relevant from a market share? Because the people we do business with, our suppliers, need to grow their revenue in order to get their share prices up. That's one challenge. Another challenge is you have to fight very hard against complacency and people becoming too entitlement-oriented. That's a big challenge for us, just like it is in a lot of other companies I'm sure that are out there. That's very difficult, because most of us started in the company in entry-level positions, and we don't have anything to compare it to. And so we put it in perspective from our frame. That's why we do encourage our people to get outside interests. We do encourage them to get involved in industry things outside of our company and ask them to continue to ongoing education outside the company to bring best practices in. So, I mean, those probably are the biggest weaknesses, but it's a great question.
Challenges, you said, not weaknesses.
Oh, challenges.
Challenges, yes. Other question? One in the back, please. Who is in the back? Yes, here. This gentleman.
Hello, I'm André from Fundação Dom Cabral, Brazil. And the question is related to a sense of purpose, because in the previous sections we are discussing whether employees have or not a sense of purpose, and I wonder in your case how that works.
That's a great question. If you look at our purpose, is we state publicly on a regular basis that our purpose is to provide a quality of life, a good quality of life, to our employees while they're working and through retirement. And so for us, we exist only because of our employees, period. The majority of us who are in senior level leadership positions, with the exception of our attorney we hired from outside the company, were born and raised pretty much, I call it born and raised with the company, because many of us are second, third, and fourth generation employees. I'm a first generation, but my predecessor was second generation, and 2 of his children worked for the company. 2 presidents ago, he was a third generation Graybar employee, and his daughter works for us, so it was our 4th generation. And so that we continue to hire people that have the same type of core values that we do. I recently interviewed a bunch of young people for a leadership development program, because I personally interview all of them, as well as several levels of our C-suite. And one of the folks said to me, I said, why us? You know, you have opportunities to go work for Google or Citibank or whoever it is, Citigroup, whoever it is. Why us? We're not flashy. We're not a, you know, cool kind of company. And every single person that interviewed brought up a couple things. One, they brought up the employee ownership. Because what they said is, we feel that you invest a lot in your employees and trust them, and we want to work at a place where there's a lot of trust, and we know you're going to invest in our well-being. And the second thing, which one of the young folks said to me, and I think it's very emblematic of who we are, is this young man said to me, what I like about this company and why I want to work there is because you never leave anybody behind. You win together, you lose together, but it really is, at the end of the day, all about the team. And so we try and we nurture that, but that's a great question. Thanks for asking it.
Thank you, and this was a great concluding remark on this session. Now let's move to the second form of different ownership, ownership by one's customers. So Georg, will you tell us how you manage that in Raiffeisen, please?
Thank you very much. I'll stand here so get a new picture. Please apologize for turning you the back. First, I'd like to give you some greetings from Louis, for those who were here this morning. Louis went skating in the morning. He will resume work on his Concorde project in the late afternoon, and he will be supported by his sister, who is 3 years old. So just keep yourself informed on this Concorde project. The Raiffeisen, I want to give you a very simple example about Raiffeisen Austria so you can understand who we are. Many of you landed in Schwechat, which is a village very near to Vienna. And there is a Raiffeisen Bank which has been founded 110 years ago. And just people like here, I'm afraid there was no women under them at the beginning, said we will found a bank because we don't want to be dependent on all these commercial banks. And so they started the bank. The bank is now 110 years old. It's a fully fledged bank, and the bank is owned by the members who are also the customers of this bank. And this is the General Assembly of each Raiffeisen Bank, which appoints the supervisory board and also selects the chairman, who then appoints a management board. So this is a system. Many people told us before we are old-fashioned. But I tell you, the cooperative model we live is the most modern model you can have. I'm really convinced. And if you ask me, do I have a suggestion, just change into our form. Just do that. I mean, I believe this is a very good way to tackle it. We are not, you heard a lot, 32,000 people are employed in this way. We have a market share of 50% in the market in Austria, so we are by far the strongest banking group in this country. And when you look at all you heard, and when you think of all you heard today, this morning, one thing is greed. The greed, it's not only shareholder value, it's also a question of greed. We try, our answer to greed should be fairness. We try to be fair. We do not have CEO celebrities. We don't have them. You don't know all these people. I mean, you know me today, but we're not CEO celebrities. We are many, many people in the company, and the company is customer-owned. So we are not greedy, but we want to be fair. We don't want to be too speedy. We want to be, and also following your suggestion, we want to be less speedy than others, because banking and banking services is not a question of speed, it's a question of quality. And at the end, we want to deliver quality to all our customers. I'm very proud of what we do, but we're not vain in what we do. And that's the way of Raiffeisen, that's what we try, and I think we have a big corporation model that fits to Peter Drucker. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Very good. So how do you find your customers as shareholders, Georg? Are they severe with you? I mean, do they give you strong requirements and directions?
Oh, yes, they do. Oh, yes, they really do. I mean, and the difference between a big corporate and a Raiffeisen Bank is that the people, they are not in Schwechat, where you landed, and please think of Raiffeisen when you leave. I mean, we make it easier for you because we have written it all over the place.
Yes.
which costs a lot of money, as you could see. But think of Raiffeisen when you leave Austria. These people are quite harsh with us, and they have to be, because they own the company and they're in the region. So they're not, nobody from Vorarlberg, which is in the very westernmost part of this small and wonderful country, would tell somebody in Schwechat what to do. And Mr. Stepic, who is the CEO of our Raiffeisen Bank International, he cannot drive to Schwechat and tell them what to do. They will tell him if they give him more equity or not. I love this system. And I think it's good. It's really democratic. And we stick with it. We stick with it. It's the biggest treasure of Raiffeisen Austria.
You do seem to be somewhat convinced.
I am.
Yeah.
Not somehow. I am. I am.
Now, a little question. You started as a cooperative, right? Many years ago.
Me personally?
No, the Raiffeisen
Raiffeisen,
movement.
yes.
Now, most of the companies represented here are already existing.
Yeah.
Is there a way to convert to customer ownership, to a cooperative system, which has been tried and would have worked?
I think for everybody, I mean, the suggestion is just, and I think most people here, they run such companies, that a company has to be customer driven. A company has to be customer driven. And I heard so much about shareholder value, and I heard so much about CEOs earning so much money. Just stay cool. I mean, they don't earn so much money. They have to pay 4 ex-wives or ex-men, 8 children, 8 households. You know, at the end of the day, it's not so much money they get. So
I think you're confusing the capitalist.
Let's keep it simple.
You're confusing the capitalistic system with the US Army.
No, I'm not. Oh, I'm not. Oh, God, good, 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 good. No, I think my suggestion is just let your company be driven by your customers and start customer parliaments. That's just what you said. And listen to your customer. You know, I mean, we all bring our emails and all our companies into this room. We cannot slow down anymore. Everybody, there are thousands of people in here because we answer all the emails and everything, because we are so always keen going and pushing and pushing. And I think we listen far too much to people, internal things and all the regulations in banking, for instance, but we do not listen to our customers. And I think if you listen to customers, then they will tell you what they want, not in any field, not in all the fields. I mean, nobody would have told you that you need an iPad, and all of you have at least one. So there are needs, nobody knows, you have to create them. But in general, for service-oriented customers, Raiffeisen Bank Austria, we listen. Let's listen to customers, although it's difficult because everybody wants to sing her or himself. That's why people don't listen.
So the best way to become a cooperative must be to, besides what you sell to your customers anyhow, sell them a few shares at the same time, and after a while you will be customer owned.
I mean, but it's not the same system, you know. Nobody's looking at a Raiffeisen Bank in a quarterly. I mean, we look at a Raiffeisen Bank, we're watchful. I listened to Adrian before, who said, you have to, he brought the Nokia example. It took them too long to change. We are really looking at our results, but we know that the results are a byfactor to what we do, because we want to encourage people in the region, we want to support them, at the end of the day we want to help them to get things done. And there's our private customers, these are individuals, these are commercial customers, and we just support them. And so I have a very good conscience about Raiffeisen in the financial crisis, everybody tells them, because what we did, we really tried, and I did the 25 years, we always wanted to support people to be more successful.
So your next step must be to enlist your 5-year-old boy as a member of the cooperative. Now yes. Let's go for some questions from the audience. Who has one? Yes? Here, please.
Magdalena chat. Sorry.
Sorry.
The question is the following. When you open up a branch in another country, what about your customers and employees in this country? Are they going to be the owners as well, or they are just employees and customers? And may I just have a question to each member?
No.
And just,
That's too early.
but it's very important.
Try it.
Okay, how all the employee owners participate in the strategy development process? Thank you.
Okay. This is a very strict chairman here. Question number one, customer-owned services in, I presume that you mean Eastern European countries. We have not created cooperative systems in Hungary, for instance, because we did not have the time to do so. There are countries where we started cooperatives, but not in banking. But as you know, Raiffeisen Bank International is a subsidiary of Raiffeisen Bank Schwechat. So, but we're working on these family and friends programs there. So we want to bring all, which you asked me, all the good things of a cooperative bank into a non-cooperative system. And it would have taken too long to start up. You know, we had more time. In Austria, we had 125 years to develop the system. This was question number one.
On the strategy.
And the strategy, I mean, the strategy of the bank is let's again take the Raiffeisen Bank Schwechat, is defined by the management board, which has been selected from the General Assembly. So I think that's quite a good mixture of people who live in the region. That's the difference. They live in the region, so they know what's going on. Some people say we're too slow. I think I love to be slow. I think we can avoid lots of mistakes, not being a big international company and just not even knowing what we're doing because 100s of emails per hour touch our iPads or iPhones.
There was a question in the back. Yes, please. Here.
Hossam Zaitoun from the University of Warwick in the United Kingdom, and my question goes to both previous speakers. There is a common criticism in orthodox law and economics which says that employee ownership and customer ownership can't work because the constituencies have very heterogeneous interests. So for example, there are young employees, old employees, men, women, the same with customers, whereas allegedly shareholders all have the same interests, which is return on investment. And also allegedly, because in your companies constituencies have such heterogeneous interests, those scholars say that managers are not held accountable. How would you react to this kind of criticism?
I completely disagree.
Very good. You want to say why?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. I completely disagree because I think exactly what you said. What we are trying to do in the General Assembly is to invite people who, by the way, are volunteers. They don't get any money for that. Okay? We discussed the money issue today. It's not a money question. It's a question of purpose. We had it today. It's a purpose thing. It's my bank. It's my bank. Raiffeisen, by the way, is also my bank. So I do not think that's a problem. I mean, the shareholders, I mean, look at the tunnels of shareholders. I mean, they're only looking at money. What's that? I mean, there's not the panel for that, but I would love to discuss that. So, I mean, money is so narrow. But what we do is far wider. It's far wider. It's far more than that. There are far more. It's all the things which are so modern at the moment, you know, the sustainability and let's look in 10 years' time. That's exactly what we do. And people don't get nervous when we have when Raiffeisen Bank Schwechat has one bad year, nobody will get nervous. We've been in the market for 100 years. We are watchful to what we do, and we will be here in another 100 years' time.
So it's not just one question which is going to make you doubt your model.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Kathy, do you care to comment on the heterogeneity of your employees' owners' interests?
Sure. I agree with what he just said. We're very similar. When I was listening to you speak about the greed and all that stuff, I'm thinking we're about the same way.
We should merge.
Yeah. Except we have different business models, but yeah.
That's a business model.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
But I think the key is...
I love it.
Yeah. The key is this, is when you hire somebody, it doesn't matter their age, it doesn't matter their gender, it does not matter their ethnicity. What it matters are the core values and what they believe is important in their life. So if you hire correctly, the rest of the issues you work through, because we work for more than the money. One of the challenges we have is if you want to make the big bucks, you know, immediately, and you want instant gratification, you're not going to come work for us in the first place, right? Because at the end of the day, the CEO makes less than 15 times the average salary. So we don't have anywhere near that profit model that you heard about earlier or you hear about from the Wall Street folks. And so, again, it doesn't matter the backgrounds, it matters to be what the person values. And if the person doesn't value what we have, then typically they don't come work for us.
One more question. Yes?
Yeah, Jan Andersen from Nordic Innovation. Short question, but I need to say that if we come back to Peter Drucker, I believe that his method was kind of being observant and then predict that into the future. Trends that were hidden but would be future things. Looking at one of the most admired companies today is Apple. I think that Steve Jobs, he was not asking the customers what they liked. He was observing and then he would turn it into his vision. And that's how Dieter Rams worked with the great design from Braun in many years in Germany. And going back to Ford, said if I asked the customers what they want, a faster horse. So my question is, how do you develop innovative longer-term projects that are not just incremental when you ask everything from the planning of the company kindergarten to the management board?
Very interesting.
I mean, we listen, first of all, we listen to people. And I'm really convinced that a customer-driven and customer-driven organization is the strongest you can get. Number two, we're a service company, so we serve customers. We think that the core competence of Raiffeisen Austria is the advisory bank. So that's a one-to-one personal banking. People keep telling me that the branches in banking will erode, you won't need them anymore. We do not believe that. So we do not follow quick trends. I think we need a bit longer to execute things because we have more discussions within the group of Austrian banks. This is clear. So this might be a disadvantage. On the other hand, you know, it's a big advantage because we don't make all the same mistakes. So if I create something in Vienna, the gentleman and the board in Schwechat, which is 3 kilometers from here, will say, I won't do that. And perhaps when I fail, he knew better. So I think that's a quite good model how to tackle the thing. We're not Apple, but I don't want to be Apple. And I think we're a very precious brand, but we're a different company. We know what we can, we know our weaknesses, but I think we stick to what we know best. Stick with your strengths. I think that's important. I'm almost finished. Stick with your strengths. Okay?
Very good. Thank you very much. We'll close this chapter on customer ownership and then move to large numbers of owners to very, very, very few. So Klemens, tell us how you are managing under these circumstances at Grimme.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pierre. I'm really delighted and proud to share some of our experience and ideas about management of market leaders of tomorrow in front of such an audience. Before I came to the insights of this, I have to say some words of my personally most impressive speech of this morning. This morning we heard fantastic words from Doris Drucker, 101 year old, and she was talking about potato planters, GPS-steered potato planters. And that's what we are designing and producing.
Oh.
So I really would like to employ Mrs. Drucker if she wouldn't have to prepare such good words for this important audience. Following the last question to the visions of a company, I can say we are not Apple, but we have to be Apple in our business niche in 10 years' time as well. And that's one of the biggest challenges. We are, since 50 years now, world market leader in this business. And to become number one is the one thing, and to stay number one is a total different thing. As we have heard some examples already this morning with Nokia and so on. But I agree, all my previous speakers here in this plenary, that for me as well is one thing very clear. You don't have to care mostly for the shareholder value, you have to care mostly for the customer value. But now coming to the insights of our experience. This book made the biggest impact on my innovations in management. This book is Peter Drucker's book from 1999, and the one sentence in this book stayed in my head in the last 13 years. That's the sentence we heard already this morning sometimes. The biggest challenge for the management in the 21st century is how we can maximize the productivity of the knowledge workers. And I think we have heard a lot of things about the big things, and I want to go a bit deeper into the internal structures and organization and people of an organization to keep number one. As Drucker has said, the productivity of the knowledge workers and no one else will create the values in the future. It's not anymore the industrial workers, the muscle workers, because we have so intelligent machineries and robots in the production that even in the production we just need people who are knowledge workers. They have to take information and rework this information and to adjust the machines to do the right things. Out of 30 years experience of defending the world market leadership and stay number one, I developed a management concept for answering these challenges. And as everything, either whether it is technical or it is in organization, for me, the basic principle of the nature is very important. That's from Albert Einstein already called that everything what is successful is simple. And therefore, I was looking to our growing organization for a very simple method to check the quality of an organization. Searching and luckily, I found a very simple answer to this. If you have a lot of teams or organizations to govern, then you just have to look how many problems you get in a team. And if you look and count these problems, then you will see where are the biggest fear for the future. And after finding out this, I tried to find out what are the reasons for problems. And I was looking months for months and came finally to the conclusion that there is nearly just one reason for all problems, for all avoidable problems in organization and management. And this one and only reason is, in our point of view, non-successful communication. Because we all are not educated in communication. We try to bring information and knowledge from one to the other, but what is the percentage of which is coming over? So this was a very important cognition, but what else will be very important, especially in the future, in the age of informations? What will be the main keys for success in the future? What capabilities will be needed to stay and become market leader? Is there a principle of success somewhere in the world which is getting more and more complex? When the knowledge workers are more important than money? I was searching for more than 10 years now. But then, yes, there is one. And it is one which is proven for billions of years. The biggest secret of success on our planet is the basic principle of our nature. It's cooperation. And the new scientific research of the biologics have proven this. Bruce Lipton or Joachim Bauer have proven that cooperation is the most successful principle in the world and in the evolution. But what do we need for an excellent cooperation? When do we get out of cooperations the highest output? And again, there is an easy answer. Scientific research have found out that the results of cooperations are directly correlative to the trust level. We participated in a research project for examining trust levels and tools for increasing trust levels. And we found out the output of cooperation project is the best if the trust level is at the maximum and all participants are winning. So I came to the conclusion that you are at every time and every place, wherever you are standing, you can find a so-called all-win solution. That means that there are no losers. You just have to look for the all-win solution. So the maximum probability for highest productivity of the knowledge workers is when they are in a comfortable environment of full trust and joy of cooperation. So that's, from our point of view, the answer for the key question Peter Drucker has asked already in 1999. But how do we create such a surrounding, such an environment? Therefore, we developed a so-called all-win management concept, and its heart are 8 with each other all-win principles, as there are. First, talking with each other, not above each other. Secondly, to be open and honest. Thirdly, to have pleasure and bring pleasure. Sorry. To listen actively and really share information. To understand and steer emotions. To change the perspective. To recognize fault and blame as an illusion. And finally, to be justice, to feel good. If you implement these principles in your company, you will arrive in an all-win organization with a culture of full trust and cooperation pleasure. The ultimate requirements to be maximal innovative and competitive. In our eyes, these realize the ultimate request from Peter Drucker for the management in the 21st century. Then there is no need anymore for change management from outside, because natural wishes of every human being for changes will become again true. The evolutionary basic principle that everything is permanent in motion is the only static thing in the evolution. So I came to the conclusion that the oldest tradition of the evolution is the innovation. Finally, we developed a tool to transform an organization to a self-optimizing organism, like every human being is. Every one of us is a number or a putting together of 50 billion of cells. And these cells are working together every day without any management. So in our views, we found the answers for the management of market leaders for tomorrow basically in the nature. And if you think these basic principles of the nature visionary into the future, we will enter the age of with each other very, very soon. Thank you very much for your listening. I hope that I don't have borrowed you too much.
Thank you. By the way, if you are lucky enough to read German, Klemens is publishing his management wisdom in a book early next year called Das Management der Marktführer von morgen, and where he develops this concept of togetherness, etc. Now, what about the family?
Yeah, the family-based companies or enterprise are the base of coming to these conclusions. Because what we have heard before already, they are on long-term visions, not on quarter reports. They are on generation views. And they are on the customer value way and not on any other way.
So would it be a fair summary to say that the cohesiveness, the trust, the good communication which you find in a family, as you are a family-owned company, can be expanded to the whole enterprise?
Yes, you have drawn the way quite right. Because the base of a family-owned company is the family thinking. And everybody has to become a family member. And as we all know it and like it in good families, there is the full trust surrounding. And that's what the human being is looking for.
It's truly an original way to look at a family company. That implies, by the way, that the family itself is quite cohesive. I know some family-owned companies where I wouldn't guarantee that it is the case.
I'm absolutely with you, and that's the biggest danger for all family companies. If there are no regulations for the one generation in the next generation, then just 40% of the family-owned companies coming into the second generation, and just 10% of the family-owned company coming in the third generation. And if there are, like Bosch or some other countries, there are the rules and the regulations how to bring a company from one generation to the next generation, then it's quite safe.
Very good. A couple of questions from the audience. Who is first? What about trust in your company as opposed to the Grimme family company? Any remark? Yes, please.
McDonald, just a question. Are you included in the book by Hermann Simon, The Hidden Champions of the 21st Century? Because I translated the book into Hungarian, but I don't remember your company being in it.
Yeah, the company Grimme is addressed in Hermann Simon's book, Hidden Champions, of course.
And by the way, there is an agreement between Grimme and the Drucker family, to further enhance the consumption of potatoes around the world. Brilliant. Another question? If not, we are going to move now to... Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see that well. Yes, please.
I'd like to ask you how you protect this approach. It has almost a tenderness about it that is not commonly found in business. So in order to really make it an environment where people hold their trust, continue to trust each other, and apply the principles, what do you do to protect that environment? And what do you do when someone doesn't respect those principles?
Yeah, I'm convinced today that this management concept is not just working in family-owned companies. I'm convinced if you really want to be successful, we have heard, and I agree to that, that you have to focus on customer values, and for creating all the visions and innovations you need everywhere to be the Apple in 10 and 20 and 30 years. You need all the creativity of all people and all employees. So I predict that every company who is not focusing on his employees and creating this environment where the trust level will become at the maximum, then the results out of cooperations, and you have to cooperate in this complex world of today and even in tomorrow, you have to cooperate in teams, between the teams in the organization, and also between companies. 10 years ago, we wanted to have some information from our biggest company in our scenery, a 60,000 people American-owned company. They wouldn't even listen to us. Since 3 years, these people and the chief of the development has told us, if we don't listen and talk to you, we can't even write down the request for our next generation product. So the cooperation is a basic to be, a fundamental basic to be successful in the future. Coming back to your question, I am convinced that this is finally not just a concept for a family and for the German Mittelstand. We are as closest to this concept, like some other companies as well already, but you have to spread it out, and we heard that a lot of companies out of the family-owned scenery already are on this way.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now we are going to move from one family owner, many customer owners, many employee owners, to a group of partners. So Patrick, can you tell us about Mazars and the partnership model, please?
Thank you, Pierre. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. 2 caveats, if I may. The first one, I'm going to speak about partnerships not as legal structures, because there are many forms, but as an organization principle. And second is that, of course, I'm not as old, well, Mazars is not as old, me as well, as some of the companies that have been explaining their model. In fact, as we were founded in 1995, so 17 years ago. So to a certain extent, we achieved good growth in 17 years, getting to 13,000 employees, persons, people in the organization, led by 750 partners in 70 countries. So from 500 in 1995, when we decided to create our international partnership. So we still have uncharted waters in front of us. So I wouldn't say that Mazars is an experimental animal, but it's not fully tested yet, so apologies. I'd like to make briefly 8 observations. The first observation is about definitions. What is a partner? A partner is a person that has decided to share a sense of purpose in life, in professional life, a project, values, and risk and rewards with persons that he has selected, persons of his choice or her choice. And that is creating the basic principle for the trust in the organization. There is more value creation in our view, less risk, more contribution to the public interest as a group than as an individual. And it is believed to be the leverage for the functioning of our partnership. And let me say that many partnerships look like partnerships, but are not true partnerships. They are just cost-sharing arrangements, which is a big difference. So there is a brand, there is a franchise. It looks like a partnership, but it's not. The second observation is that the system puts the emphasis on the interaction of people treated as equals or as potential equals for staff, in order to extract, generate more value creation and more innovation. You will understand that, therefore, the key fuel for this is a sense of ownership, the capacity to decide autonomously as an individual, as a team on assignments, and also as a team globally, as a partnership. We deliver through this, we believe, much better value to our clients because we operate under a one-team concept. We don't refer work to someone. We operate as a team internationally. And that's what is explaining, I believe, our growth, because our clients like it. In the relationship internally and externally, our baseline is progress driven by collective intelligence, because we believe that collective intelligence is the triggering impact for creation of progress. Not only money, not only greed, progress. So the combination is independence and interdependence, which are the key ingredients to make our engine work. Observation 3 is about pros and cons. Of course, the system is attractive and motivational for people. From a talent perspective, I wouldn't say it's an easy sell, because Laurent Chouin, our HR director, wouldn't like it, but it's sellable, and it's appealing. The downside, so the cons, are that the system are revolving around the point that the system is much less attractive for capital. Because in the general perception, it is believed that partnerships are more volatile because of possible instability of the key resource, the people, and also that in the allocation of profit, there could be a bias between the so-called workers and the so-called capitalists. Therefore, at this stage, we function as a self-financing model, basically. It may be restrictive, it is healthy, and we also work in order to improve that. Observation 4 and 5 are about, the pivotal questions that you have to ask yourself when you create a partnership. You need also to be able to gather, mentor, and coach people. You need also sometimes to correct deviations that are not in line with the agreed-upon framework. And finally, the leadership has to guarantee a fair allocation of value creation. In fact, an observation within this observation is that it corresponds well to educated individuals and new generations' aspirations and lifestyle. Observation 5 is the other key question that you have to ask yourself, which is the allocation of value creation once maximized. I can tell you, the best part goes to the client, which is absolutely good. If you are not competitive, then first of all, your market share wouldn't grow. And so your innovation, your capacity to grow is dedicated to clients first, customer driven. As regards what is retained in the company, my view is that in partnerships, it has to be based upon medium to long-term contribution of each partner. It means that shares in profit vary over time. They can go up, they can go down for an individual. On the basis of self-assessment and contradictory assessment of the potential, current performance, and potential performance. So it's not an eat-what-you-kill system. It's not an egalitarian system either. And the range goes from 1 to 4 or 5 among the partners. complex but manageable. Observations 6 and 7 are about the challenges that the model has to face. Challenge number 1 is, of course, the challenge of size, analyzed in the context of the emergence of multipolar world. We want to stick to our truly global, international citizenship. We call ourselves Mazars citizens. It is relatively easy, as we are, with medium-sized cohorts of partners coming from medium-sized countries. But now we are facing a challenge, which is interesting in our history, which is to introduce much larger cohorts coming from strong national business cultures, such as the US and medium-term China. We don't want to unbalance the system, the values, the checks and balances, so we are currently analyzing the new equation to correspond to a multipolar world. Observation 7, challenge number 2 for us is capital requirement. I mentioned it. Why is that? In demographic terms, the baby boomers are reaching retirement. Self-financing is all right for organic growth. If we want to trigger a quantum leap for our organization, and I believe this is feasible, it requires to cope with baby boomers' reasonable expectations. So we need to find a proper allocations of the synergies and new business opportunities that would derive from a quantum leap between generations. And that's also an equation that we are working on. Last but not least, I've heard the other models. By the way, we are owned by our workers to a large extent. We are a cooperative, by the way. Our legal structure is a cooperative in Belgium. So, sorry, the family element is, well, we have the granddaughter of the founder in the firm, but she was co-opted. He didn't know. and he was not in office then. So the model has to be considered with care because it doesn't fit all sizes. What it brings, in my view, is a possible solution on how to attract, motivate, bringing young, educated talent in the world of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for this amazingly clear summary of what a partnership is. By the way, you are the chairman, and how do you find it easy to kind of get them together, give them the cohesion which you described? How do you work at it?
Well, I have heard all my colleagues say that communication was of the essence.
Yeah.
But it has to be, in our case, we have to be extremely careful not to have a top-down approach. It has to be, and that's where innovation can come from, if I may introduce a concept. It has to be bottom-up and top-down constantly. And innovation in a customer-driven organization, for instance, can come from the top, but it has to be tested with the owners, if I may say so. So, communication. Then, of course, I think the key element is if you are clear enough on the sense of purpose that you have, and on the project that you want to achieve, and also if you are fair in your own behavior with people, it helps a lot. Now, of course, in life there are accidents, it's difficult. You have ups and downs, as in any organization, even in a 17-year-old organization, we have had ups and downs, of course, because we have grown fast, and the integration of people takes time.
Very good. Questions from the audience, please? Yes, here.
André from Fundação Dom Cabral. You just said that the allocation of value creation after maximization first goes to client. So I wonder how exactly it goes to clients.
In our case, it goes via pricing, price competitiveness. Because if you offer, you know, in our profession there is an oligopoly and we are a challenger. Therefore, you know that in a situation like this, people that are in an oligopolistic situation are charging significant prices. Where does it go? Difficult to know because there is no transparency, probably in wider ranges of remunerations and higher remunerations. So we are not operating by greed. So therefore, by being competitive, we grow our market share, we satisfy our clients, and therefore, at equal or better value creation for the client, we are a lower price. It's as simple as that.
Next question. Yes? Where is it? Ah, here.
Haluk Dortluoğlu from Istanbul, Turkey. My question is about your partnership model. Does it attributable to only service sector companies, or is it also, do you think, attributable to industry or other sectors? Because, as you know, the audit companies, they have only the people as the capital, and the people can be partners as long as they are there. But the partnership model can be applied to other businesses as a question mark.
Well, as I said, I would be careful about extending the model, but I think that the inspiration that is behind is interesting for other areas of business. And you know, I think that exactly as you want to give your customers maybe shares, which is a solution maybe to some of the largest institutions that are finding a low price on the market for their, why not? If they have many customers, why not? I think the model is interesting, and it's not regulatory. The issue is not regulatory. It is how do you regroup educated people that have a contribution to make, maybe in services. In industry, I am careful. I don't know.
Another question? Yes? The mic is moving, followed by a lady.
Hi, just one question. Have you ever felt the limit of the model?
In terms of size, or in what terms?
Sorry?
In terms of competitiveness.
The limits of the model.
Well, no, if the product is okay, there is no limit.
The sky is the limit. All right, very good, thank you very much. Now let's move to something even more different, state capitalism. So, Alexander, I know you will give us your personal testimony on that, coming from Brazil. Up to you.
Thank you very much, Pierre. The reason why we are absolutely on time is not because Pierre is such a nice, mild-mannered gentleman as he appears, but he wrote us an email before saying, if you speak more than 10 minutes, I will ruthlessly cut you off. And so all of us, right? He did that. So in fact, all of us are sticking to the agenda. Now, as opposed to my colleagues on the panel, I'm not going to defend the model. But I'm going to share with you what, as a student and as an observer over the last years, I have learned about what is happening in Brazil and what probably, but I'm obviously not a student and observer of the other BRIC countries, is happening in the other BRIC countries, and in my opinion, what is of increasing importance for us as it impacts our businesses, as it impacts the way we do business, and we can do business in the future. And the phenomenon is called state capitalism. And it is something that I have faced when I came to Brazil in 2006. And let me quickly paint a picture of Brazil in 2006 so that I can share with you what happened between, let's say, 2000 and 2012. 2006 was still the first mandate of President Lula, and President Lula has taken over from Fernando Henrique Cardoso. What did Fernando Henrique Cardoso do? He tamed the inflation. He launched a new currency. So suddenly, from what you remember learning at school of this high inflation country with changing the currency every 5 years, we suddenly had a country where the inflation was under control, responsible economic policies were in place, the rule of the law was something that was one of the most important values of the government, and FHC, or Fernando Henrique Cardoso, I hope you remember this name, started a deregulation of a highly regulated economy. He also has been a big champion of free trade, and he has been a big champion of innovation and put in place the law of industrial property of patent in Brazil. So when you look at it overall, we have a democracy, we have rule of the law, a stable currency, inflation under control. It seems to be that it is a very exciting country. What happened due to that is that suddenly out of the 200 million Brazilians, between 40 and 60 million moved out of utter poverty into the middle class. When you look at these numbers, 40 to 60 million, then you have to imagine 40 million is California, 60 million is West Germany. Yeah? So huge amounts of people coming out of total poverty, moving into what is called the emerging middle class in Brazil. Why is this important? This is important because they suddenly become part of the economy. And I give you one example of how they become part of the economy in order to tell you the energy, the drive, and to a certain extent the capitalist spirit that very poor people have in Brazil. Because there's one thing that we as Europeans, and to a certain extent I am still a Viennese, despite the fact that I'm very proud that the organizers have put in brackets a BR behind my name in the program, which obviously says Brazil. But that we Europeans totally forget that poor people don't want to be poor. Now, when I came to Brazil, I was talking to the workers at one of our big factories outside Sao Paulo. And I discovered that despite the fact that we started to build a factory in a green field, now around the green field there are favelas, slums. And a large number of people lived in favelas. And I said to HR, this is unacceptable. We need to find a program of how to bring these people into responsible housing. We did the program. I came back a year and a half later, and I asked, well, how is it living in a house with water and electricity? They looked at me and said, well, we still live in a favela. And what does a general manager do in such a situation? Look at HR, right, upset, and say, well, why didn't you implement the program? And he said, we did. So I looked at the people and said, what happened? And they said, look, it was so tempting. You financed this at such competitive rates. We stayed in the favela and we rented it out. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, and I'm somehow outing myself here as a black sheep. Capitalism has a beautiful transformational force in society, because if it happens, suddenly poor people get money and start to consume. And that is exactly what was happening in Brazil, and is happening still now. So, Fernando Henrique Cardoso out, Lula comes in, and suddenly regulation goes up again. And let's look at how can we measure this? What is a state capitalist society? I'd like to share some numbers with you. In Brazil, 38% of the value traded at the stock exchange is from state-owned enterprises. In Russia, 62%. In China, 80%. So when you look at that, it is an important phenomenon, isn't it? 38 is still a champion among the, I would say, free market capitalists. But nevertheless, it started to grow. And when you look at the number of the state-owned enterprises, at the end of Fernando Henrique Cardoso, we had 106. We now have 138 at the end of Lula. And with President Dilma, they are now 145. Now, why did this impact us? Because the government said, we want to support the national industry, the local industry, the industry which is owned by Brazil. And when I started to get to know ministers, when I started to get to know Fernando Henrique Cardoso and Lula, the key messages that I can share with you from discussions with them are very, very simple. They said to me, Alex, capitalism is too important for us to leave it to the capitalists. And what they mean by that is they were saying, look, and I'm now defending a little bit a Southern Hemisphere view on the crisis. What you guys are doing up there in Europe and in the United States, we don't want to follow. We have just managed to get 60 million people into the middle class. We have to ensure that this continues, and we're not going to go through a roller coaster again. So, I said before that I'm a student and observer. Obviously, to a certain extent, I have a lot of respect for what they've achieved. I have some doubts whether what they're doing will give results. But when you look at the composition of the industry at the moment in Brazil, and when you look at the history, then somehow the facts speak for themselves. And what they explained to me in a very memorable dinner was the following. They said to me, "You're Austrian, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." "Well, have you ever looked at our flag?" And I said, "Of course." And they said, "Look, the Brazilian flag has two colors, green and yellow. And in the middle, there is the night sky with a Southern Cross. And across, there is a band which says order and progress. Do you know where the yellow comes from?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, the yellow comes from an Austrian princess, Leopoldina, the daughter of Francis II or First, who married Dom Pedro I, Emperor of Brazil. And they developed this flag which says order and progress. And so they said to me, look, we want to have progress, but we want to have progress with order." Now, their thinking about order and progress is a little bit what I have learned today about tweaking. Because to a certain extent, what the government in Brazil is doing is tweaking the capitalist system. So how are they tweaking it? They have two major plans that I want to share with you. One is called the Plano Brasil Maior, and the other one, which is impacting us as a pharmaceutical company, is called the Plan for the Health Industrial Complex. Now, both plans, in fact, operate in a very similar way. They want to attract investments into Brazil. They want to reward locally produced products. And they want to selectively invest with a huge business or economic development bank companies that are willing to do exactly that. Is this without problems? No, it's not. Because it certainly distorts a little bit the competition. But what I'm trying to defend here is that if you want to be successful in the 6th largest economy of the world, an economy that has a GDP of about $2.4 trillion right now, an economy that has the potential to grow due to a demographic boom of Brazilian baby boomers who, until 2025, will increase the workforce every single year. So if you want to be successful as a family-owned company, as a cooperative, as a partnership, or even as a global traded company as we, then I think you have to study what are the secrets and what are the mechanisms by which the Brazilians want to continue developing their free capitalist system, which have these aspects of state capitalism. And when you look back in time, Brazil in fact started out as a state capitalist system by the crown. And for about 200 years, Brazil was a closed country. And I guess you remember why Brazil is called Brazil, because the Portuguese crown exported wood, which is called pau-brasil, and therefore came the name. And the economy was closed, it turned out a disaster, and they tried it again. Nowadays, they have large companies like Embraer, the third largest aircraft maker in the world, which is more or less a government-owned enterprise. If Luis needs employment, Embraer is a good place. We have the fifth or sixth largest petroleum company, Petrobras, which, by the way, is now led by a lady who grew up in a Rio de Janeiro favela. And we're talking here about $120 or so billion enterprise, which did the largest IPO in history. So when we're looking at that, they have founded a state-owned enterprise which is called Embrapa, and which is certainly the world leader in creative, innovative seeds. Now, I think despite the fact that, and I'm now outing myself as somebody who has always admired the Vienna School of Economics and has admired the thinking of the perennial storm of creative destruction by Schumpeter, that the thinking of the Brazilians to say, well, let the Europeans ruin their system, let the Americans ruin their system, but we won't ruin it. We need to carefully continue with what we have achieved so far, is something that we as observers, students, and investors have to understand and to respect. Now, what are my conclusions from all that? What are the downsides of state capitalism? The downsides of state capitalism are cronyism, an unproductive use of capital, and a lack of productivity, and to a certain extent corruption. So what can we do as global companies in order to counteract? On the one hand, I very, very strongly defend that we can insist on transparency. So whenever there is a decision which is not transparent, then we should speak up, we should ask, and in the Brazilian legal system, this is all possible. Now, the second thing is we should invest. Because if we invest, we have a seat on the table. And fortunately, I've been able to convince our company to make a $500 million investment. So we have a seat on the table. And what I would like to say to all of you here, you're representing large companies in all different sectors. I think you can't ignore Brazil. It is one of the most important future markets. Come, invest, have a place on the table, and defend together with me the good side of capitalism. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Alexander. It was such a powerful picture. Yeah, I know. You are 1 minute late. So questions, there must be too many questions for Alexander, so we'll take only one or two. Who has the best question is the question to me. Do you? Any? Yes. Yes, Liz. Just here. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the internal contradictions of state capitalism. And I'm thinking about the dispute between Vale and the Chinese state capitalist companies at the moment that control the shipping industry. I think Vale has spent $2 billion building the world's biggest ships, and has now been told by the Chinese that they won't accept those ships, and so they're stuck with vast investments. Yeah. So we've heard about the internal contradictions of shareholder capitalism, but isn't the state capitalist system actually even more riven by contradictions?
Sure. Family conflict between two state capitalists. That's what it is.
Yes. There was a question here, I believe. That's the short answer. The long one during the break, please. Yeah.
Mr. Alexander, you mentioned that you will not do the same mistakes of the Europe and US doing, and you will treat the things differently in Brazil so that things develop in a different way. But I think it's not clear what will you do different other than having more babies for the future. So what do you exactly mean doing things different in a capitalist manner other than different from the northern part of the world?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I'm not doing anything different in Brazil. In fact, who is doing things differently in Brazil are the Brazilians and the Brazilian governments. The demographic advantages are also not due to babies, but in fact to people who are already born. When you look at the birth rate is already declining. So therefore, that demographic advantage will only be valid until 2025. But I think, if I understand the Brazilian politicians correctly, what they try to do differently is they, for instance, try to impose very strict rules on the capitalization of banks. When the 2008 crisis broke upon us, the Brazilian banks looked around and said, we're fine. Because they have gone through so many periods of hyperinflation, they knew how to handle the crisis. Now, and when you look at the government is saying, we can't accept, and that's probably a very important point that they make, and please don't get me wrong, I'm here a student observer, I'm not defending this. I don't know how it will play out. But what they are saying is the following: we won't allow that our industrial base is gonna flip to China or to Asia just because at the moment there's such a significant wage difference and therefore sort of total production cost difference. So therefore we have within all the WTO treatments, because that's an important aspect of Brazilian policy. They want to remain within all the world's governing bodies. We have to find mechanisms of increasing local production, increasing local investments, and making sure that the economy is not only consuming, but is also producing.
Let me bring this session to a conclusion by summarizing what I think we learned from our distinguished panelists, which I'd like to thank very warmly for their contributions. First, we learned from Kathy that having a level of relationships with employees is a must. There are too many companies looking at employees as fungible and not having the right understanding of their value and the value which the duration of their employment can bring. Then we learned how to be truly customer-centric is by being surrounded and owned by customers, and customer centricity becomes such a key mechanism which one needs to emulate in other companies. We then learned that trust and togetherness are maybe the best way to fight the silos phenomenon, which we observe so much in our larger companies. Then we learned about partnership, and actually what I observe is that more and more of the high-level employees are considering themselves independently of your organization as partners. And they want to be treated as partners, otherwise they will go and work for your competitors. And finally, understanding state capitalism better, we can, first of all, feel quite humbled as compared with these countries struggling to accelerate their growth as they are doing. And I think we have to learn to show respect for the way they work and adapt to the way they want to manage their countries and their economies. Thank you very much.